Hello, we're John and Denise Billington from Room 9 Media, and we just really wanted to talk to you a bit about today about Year 7 and PowerPoint. Over the lockdown, we decided we'd address this issue and look to develop a resource for Year 7, and we eventually decided upon using PowerPoint. And I just wanted to share a few of the things that we've learned in relation to this age group and in relation to this media. Now, I think the first thing I want to say really is that PowerPoint can form part of what you might call the media mix, which is a term people in advertising would use to talk about the different ways they'd use to reach the target audience. So, for instance, social media and email, digital, printed, outdoor advertising, etc. So we just got to think of it as part of a whole thing. We're not saying this is the only way, we're just saying this is part of it to maximize our impact when we want to reach this age group, and indeed any age group. So we want to talk a bit about PowerPoint. We're not looking to do Bill and Melinda Gates' job for them. I mean, he's always pestering me to like his Facebook posts, but here we are. We just want to talk a bit about PowerPoint and how basically it's an underutilized piece of software. It's quite often badly used, perhaps, though it is cheaper, it's very adaptable. And it's great in terms of flexibility. So if you're doing something in a classroom or you're sending something to a teacher, you can send it on ahead. You can use your own laptop. You don't need to be online. If the school's internet goes down or anything like that, you're completely free from that because it's fairly flexible and it carries a lot of different forms of media as well. So as well as being part of the media mix, it can give you plenty of options. Okay.
So we're looking at how we do the PowerPoints and how we make it look attractive to the educational settings, to people that are presenting, to teachers. So we begin with research, as always. We look at the data, look at the national curriculum, look at schemes of work, bring all that together, and that gives us our aims for the PowerPoint, as you can see in the slide. From the data that we've looked at, we decided on this one to focus on risks and distractions and also on route planning.
Okay.
So this first slide, this one shows you an observation exercise. We always start with something that's interactive for the children, so it really engages the children and gets them thinking. So this observation exercise, the dangers come on in the street for 20 seconds. The children look at it, make notes of all that they can find, and then then they feed back to the teacher, and we go on to look at the main causes of pedestrian accidents. So this way, as I said, it's interactive for the children. They straight away have to feed back what they can see, and also for the teacher, they can see already what the children know and don't know. If we go on to the next slide. This is just an example of some of the one of the activities that we might use in a PowerPoint like this. We try and look to make sure that the children don't have to just sit there, read slide after slide and make loads of notes, but that they can actually get up and work in small groups, work in pairs, do role play, as well as working in whole classes or individually. So here they're doing role play or freeze frame or hot seat, which are things that the teachers do a lot.
So really, one of the things I wanted to talk to about Year 7 is, as well as being in a transition from primary to secondary, the children of that age, well, they're not really called children, they're between children and adolescents, yes, students, and they are referred to often as tweens, which is between childhood and adolescence. And so whilst we talk about the one transition from primary to secondary, we've also got to talk about this other transition, which is kind of hot on the heels and also perhaps at the same time, from childhood to adolescence. And it's a group that we really need to concentrate on because it's a time where they start developing their own ideas. I was reading an article about them as part of our research, and there's things like increased risk taking, the more rebellious, And things like they discard hobbies they once loved. So I wish we'd known this earlier. We wouldn't have bought all that horse riding gear. But they start new hobbies because basically they're developing the new identity. And obviously there's more pressure from social media now as well, which adds in a whole new pressure to them. And the one bit this article concluded was that a key to parenting them is empathy and understanding, whilst also setting healthy boundaries. And I thought that was a great tone to take for any work we do with this group, so that we're listening to them, they're finding out what their concerns are, what their worries are, and helping them to form strategies to stay safe and to make good decisions. So we look at this one. So the one thing about this group is that they like different forms of media. So we'll come on to that in a second, but so here we are, we can click on there and look at junctions.
Yeah, this is just a little point that all the way through we try and make our questioning open-ended so that the children don't just say yes or no. So questions like, why is it safer to cross away from the junction, rather than, do you know what this is, junction? And it just gives the children something to really think about and then feed back to whoever's doing the presentation, rather than just a yes or a no answer.
Right. Right. Another thing I wanted to say as well is that a lot of the websites and apps that people of this age use tend to be things like TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. You look at them, they are all quite minimalistic, quite simple, quite clean, which is a feel you want in a classroom presentation as well. So that's a happy kind of coincidence. But also they will house lots of different forms of media. So there'll be digital illustration, as you can see here in the background, photographs, and a video as well in the top corner. So we can embed a video, just get permission to use it, which we have done with this from the Simple show. And so you can hang a lot of different forms of media onto this. They like the technology, as we all know, but they like it mixed up as well. So what we're doing is different styles. So also looking at the interactivity here. So again, we can ask them, I'll just move us down a bit. There we go. We'll ask them which form of transport they take, how do they get to school? And so it's giving them a chance to contribute. This could be done in different ways too.
Yes, obviously it could be done as a whole class activity where the teacher literally asks how many of you walk, whatever, and puts it on the screen. Or you could do it as small groups where you've got a group set up in one corner who the children go to if they walk to school, another group set up in another corner if they go by car, etc. And then the children could be writing down, for example, talking together and writing down the kind of dangers they might come across if they walk or if they go in a car, or how even they could make their journey a bit more sustainable. So they're interacting in a small group rather than just sitting in a class.
Yeah, and I think the point as well is that the photographs we use, we will tend to always try and use ones that got some diversity in. You might like to always make sure you reflect the right age group or just go a bit older. And obviously if you want to adapt PowerPoint, which is easy enough to do by changing bits of text, you can also change photographs. So the good thing about a PowerPoint over and above, say, an interactive website, it's cheap and easy to change things. So let's just move on from that. And if we drill down into those forms of transport, we're looking here at bus travel. And the reason we showed you that is that obviously there's not too much text there, just a few things, but we mentioned travel apps there. So you could localize that, which is a great thing with PowerPoint. You could put a link into a local travel app, click on it, and it'd take you online. And similarly, underneath, there's a generic video there from Arriva Travel. But if you wanted to use a localized one, you could replace that with your own video. So again, PowerPoint has got lots of stopping off points. And then we moved from bus travel to cycling, and we've used a completely different means. What we haven't done there is just repeat the same method, but we've used a quiz here, and there's just one page from the quiz. So it's just keeping things interesting. It's moving it around. It's not being formulaic. And then on to car travel. So obviously there's a good point here with car travel, because if you look in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a video, and that's of crash test dummies, and some of them are restrained and some of them aren't. So there are the obvious results when the car crashes. And I thought that's kind of interesting, because what we want to do is not be too explicit with this age group. We don't really want to show pictures of people flying through car windscreens, because it is too explicit, and you may, you know, if you send this out somewhere, you don't know who might be watching it. So what we're doing is try to point out the dangers, but have a fairly light touch about it, so that we're not going for big shock tactics, but we're trying to make them think for themselves. And we're looking at seatbelts, so you could do a survey in the classroom, ask them who may not wear seatbelts and why. And then we've got some typical excuses, reasons here in the top corner. So we look at this one: you don't need to use a seatbelt if it's only a short journey. And you click on there, and then there's a simple fact: a third of crashes happen within a mile of home. So again, it's not being overbearing, it's not being patronising, it's just stating a simple fact. And then that's it. So that's the get in there package. And what we're really saying is that PowerPoint is pretty underutilized, and there's some great opportunities. So that's basically what we've learned about year 7, what we want to share about year 7 and PowerPoint. And if you want to discuss any of these issues further about PowerPoint, or about year 7, or about any of these other matters relating to communication, then just get in contact with us by going to our website, room9media.co.uk. Thank you.
Thank you.